guys? We're back with the 24th episode of the 5D Warrior podcast. As always, I'm John here with
Corey, and we have a guest today, Eric Delozier, back better than ever. How are you doing, Eric?
Thriving, boys. Happy to be here. Hoping everyone's having a beautiful day. It's summertime's coming up, so it's getting warm.
So you've been driving across the country, and what have those experiences been like for you recently? Like, what have you been doing, getting grounded? I see you posting a bunch recently. How has it been?
So, lately I've actually been settling in. I've been in Joshua Tree, California, and I've just been doing a lot of labor. And then on the days, usually around midday when the sun gets really intense, I'll come inside and handle my computer work, my business and the superfoods and all that. And then, sometimes we're out there kind of late at night, just like beating the heat, getting the work done. We've been doing a lot of painting, landscaping, really whatever needs to be done on the property, just getting it ready to be running these retreats.
So where you're at right now, you guys are like it's like a community center, or you're having like retreats and stuff, or are you in like?
Well, that's the intention right now. One of the properties is pretty much good to go, but we've been working on both of them a little bit, and then this property is like came a long way. Like I'm inside right now. Some of the internal stuff is not completely done. Like there's painting going on, some other stuff. So, hold on, I got. Put this on do not disturb.
You're good.
I'm gonna try calling. Anyways, yeah. So the house is like nearly finished. Some of the stuff on the land needs to be finished still, but by like late August, we're looking to run the first retreat here. So, and I believe we're gonna be ready.
What's the goal with the retreats now going to be when you're building those centers and stuff?
Well, so there's a lot of like retreats we want to run. The first one we're going to be doing is very, very much just helping people to ground in, really get still, because the desert is a very still place. It's easy to drop in and get grounded. And so we're going to be doing like Qigong, harmonizing people's biological oscillators through movement and breath. Biological oscillators being like your gut brain, your heart brain, your actual brain, kind of getting all of the systems in coherence. And then the circadian rhythm, obviously. So rising with the sun, doing your qigong, and then going to sleep with the sunset. And so really, harmonizing your system so that like you wake up naturally. Like for me now, like being out here doing the qigong every morning with the sunrise, even if like I didn't go to bed that early, my body naturally wakes up around 5:30 in the morning when the sun starts cresting. And then I kind of choose whether to sleep for another hour or what. But the body is like in tune. It knows what it wants. It knows like what feels natural. And so the intention is to get people out here and get really good quality food in their system, get them grounded, get them like harmonized. And that way, when they go back into their environment, whether it's LA or wherever it is, they kind of have a framework for what real health feels like in their body. And they can operate from that place.
So is this going to be like a once in a while type of retreat place, or is it set up so like anyone that's passing through can come by and like experience these things that you guys are putting out?
So that's just going to be one of the retreats. We're going to be doing like qigong teacher trainings. We're going to be doing some intensive detoxing retreats. There's a lot, and it's like 1 day workshops, 3 day workshops, stuff like that here and there. And we also want to open the space up to anyone who's going to be wanting to host their own retreats. And we actually have a PDF document that kind of goes through helping people to kind of set up their own first retreat if that's something they're interested in exploring.
That sounds awesome, actually.
Yeah.
That makes
just to have these spaces really booked out year-round, and having really high vibrational retreats running, and really developing a community ecosystem, utilizing local connections for food, as well as like eventually growing food on the properties and such. So, but it's all a work in progress, 1 day at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just finally building a community around it, and just
yeah
together, because I feel like a lot of people right now are using the internet as their means of kind of communicating this knowledge and spreading the wealth and love and stuff, and like bringing that together, like interpersonal and like actually being with those people, I think definitely is going to be powerful for that.
Well, and one thing I've realized through my travels, being in places like Sedona, which is really cool, and like Los Angeles, different cities across the United States, it's like oftentimes these places have very intense energies. And while we're in them, like I can speak from like when I lived in LA and when I was in Sedona, being in that energy all the time is like, did not really feel the best on my system. And so I think there's a lot of value in getting out of wherever you're staying at into a new environment, especially a place that's like super still. You don't have a lot of the EMF pollution or the light pollution and stuff, so you can really see the stars, and it's quiet. There's not a lot of noise out here outside of like the occasional dog barking or a coyote or something. So really grounding into a new environment and finding that baseline for what it feels like to be centered. And then you can bring that center forward with you back into these intense vortexes, if you will, in the cities.
Yeah, it's almost like we just gotta be conscious and protect our energy. Like you can get too caught up in the LA, like the limelight, and like you lose your true self. And like I
Well,
like
you,
you guys doing these retreats to like bring people back to that.
well, you can easily lose your center in this place. And what I've noticed when you're there, it's very hard to see what's going on until you step out of it. It's like once you get that bird's eye view and you take time to reflect in stillness, you kind of remove yourself from the equation, and you're like, oh, like look at all those patterns that were manifesting in my life in that environment. But while you're kind of in the day-to-day routine, it can sometimes be hard to notice a lot of the unconscious behaviors playing out.
Yeah, I wish I could live like that right now.
Yes, there's nowhere I'd rather be right now. Everything's coming together in perfect. So that's how I know it's the right place to the right time.
It's awesome. In divine timing.
Yes, yes.
So with the qigong you've been doing recently, I've been really putting an emphasis in my practices and stuff on qigong, and it's something I've been doing almost every day. But I feel like there's stuff that I don't know if it's moves or ideas in my mind when I'm doing it. Like, what is it that you focus on primarily when you're doing that qigong? Or like, is there any sort of regiment you follow, or is it kind of like just how you feel in the moment?
For me, it's a very interesting focus. Actually, it's finding this place of like full embodiment and awareness. So having awareness to your feet, all the way up in your legs and your bones, all your organs, into your hands, just like total full body awareness. But also you're in good posture, um, and you're slightly active, but you're also very relaxed. And so you're finding that place between active movement and relaxation to the point where you're floating. But like true Qigong, you're not meant to be like floating out in the ethers, which I mean, you can do. But the real magic comes from when you're fully embodied and aware of your body, but you're also in these other dimensions and such at the same time. Because then you're really channeling those energies through all the cells in your being, and that's where you end up feeling very charged up and like energy moving through your entire being, because we're electrical beings.
So is there any sort of alignment principles that you follow too? Because I know you're very into like the energy moving and that electrics through your body. Is there anything that you do primarily to like align those chakras and align yourself with like this true reality?
Oh, well, just, getting out and grounding and being, doing certain movements with the sun is actually very good for that alignment. As well as there's various like preparation stuff I'll do as far as mild fascia release, stretching, corrective exercises, stuff like that. So that the body is naturally wanting to be in like a neutral position and feeling stable. And there's not like restrictions. Because if you have restrictions in your joints, that blocks the flow of energy, and so it becomes stagnant. And so, a lot of these people out there like lifting like crazy weights and doing all these crazy movements, depending on what your intention is, that can actually be potentially detrimental if you're creating unnecessary binding through the joints and really walking up the tissues, creating all these trigger points. Like, my goal is to be able to be moving, be healthy, like longevity, like, and have good energy flow through my entire being. And so I cater my training and my approach to having that.
Yeah, I want to know, like, what books or like studies have you researched and stuff that like got you into like knowing like all this stuff and how to like channel your energy with like the qigong and like everything else that you do. Like, what should people like research and like look out for to like understand this stuff?
Yeah, so Bruce Lee's books are really good, though he doesn't go as much into the qigong, but some of his philosophy is really good in general. He also is really big into like the active or the dynamic tension movements, where you're kind of like you flex in and then kind of release, and it's like you're moving through like full range of motion with tension, with just body weight, and that really gets the blood flowing. But you know, outside of Paul Chek's teachings, I haven't really gone that deeply into anything along those lines. Where I've been blessed is to be in the presence of mentors and people that are far along their way on these paths. Like the guy I've been working a lot with lately, like, I don't know if he would call himself a master, but I would definitely consider him a master of Qigong. And, he's trained with like legit, like, OG masters and stuff that didn't really speak English. And he had to kind of figure it out, along the way. And being in his presence and like understanding where he's coming from, like having practiced Tai Chi and Qigong for so long, like he's really taken my practice to another level, because he's very intentional with everything he does, and it's all about efficiency, because he's owned multiple businesses and stuff, and so he's all about how can I get the best result in the shortest amount of time. And so he's structured various qigong systems around that in the shortest amount of time you can cultivate the most chi and body awareness that you can carry forward into your day. And so mentorship, that's where it's at, surrounding yourself with people that are further along the journey and the path that you want to go, the direction that you want to go. So if like you want to be X in whatever industry that is, find someone who you really resonate with that's like doing it and living the life you want to live. And then, try to get in their energy or interact with them, or just follow the principles that you see them carrying out. That's the fastest way anyone can learn, is just through mentorship.
Yeah,
and if you can physically with them, even better.
Yeah, that's why we're so grateful to have you come on to talk to us, because like you kind of are like a mentor in my eyes, at least, because I think you're definitely more along the way than like me and Corey are. So like, every time you come on and talk, it's like we leave this call and then like we have something new to practice. And
Yeah,
I'm happy that
I was really. After the last call, I really just like had to get grounded into the qigong and the mindfulness and understanding just like the now moment that you were talking about the last time. And that really, when you were talking about the gong and talking about 100 days of qigong, that like drove me to, I was like, not that I did it or I plan to, but like just inspired me to be like, yo, he knows what he's talking about. And I think that that's a good thing that I apply in my life too. So
yeah, can you tell us about, so like you're in Joshua Tree now, like where did this journey begin? Like I believe were you in Sedona, and then where'd you go after that? Like what has your journey been like to get
Sedona.
where you are now?
Yeah, from Sedona I went to Nevada City, and I was there for a week visiting some friends, and that was a really cool experience. I met some really cool people. If you've never been to Nevada City, it's in California, and it's a really magical place. It's like an old mining town. It's very much similar to Sedona, but it's like a forest and mountains. But it's like very much a conscious community. There's a lot of nice shops and stuff. And so yeah, I had a good time there. And then I had an opportunity to come here to do some labor over a weekend, doing just landscaping and setting up rock vortexes and stuff like that. And from there, it led to me staying here and developing a business relationship with the owners of the property. And, now we're really building out both physically on the land, but also like the infrastructure as far as marketing the retreats and all of that. And putting all these digital assets together, you know, and this is all like in alignment with the vision I had in 2020 of wanting to put together these communities and help people really reconnect with themselves, reconnect with the earth, and you know, find the wisdom that lives within them.
So do you hope to be one of these teachers at one of these facilities? Is that something that you're looking for, like looking in the future towards, is like actually instructing people in Qigong or other methods like lectures and that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I will be playing that role. But I'll be playing many roles because I like to engage in many activities, and uh, yeah, I like variety. I don't like doing the same thing all the time. My real passion, you know, lies with the working with my hands and building things. And I've been studying some really next level architecture that takes into account like sacred geometry, astrology, mathematics to a very specific degree. And it's like, I mean, it's architecture like I've never seen before. And it's so intentional and precise, and like it's not just like, oh, let's set up a structure that's like efficient and, you know, is cost effective. It's like, no, it's like, how can we cultivate the energy of the structure that it like harmonizes with the land and is also harmonious to anyone who interacts with it. So really creating sacred sites throughout the properties I engage with. So right now I'm here working with these people, and it's a huge blessing. But moving forward, you know, I want to get my own land with other people and start to build out in this way, and really developing out sacred places for people to visit and, you know, refine themselves. Really, you know, the way I see it, when you get the energy is harmonious in an environment, and you bring someone out, say for like a month or whatever, and they're really ready to do the healing. Well, you take them through a full moon cycle with you, and you give them all the guidance. You say, okay, this is what we do. This is why we do it. And you really show them how to live. And when you do that and they do it for a month, it's like they're a completely different person on the other end of that. And their understanding of what it means to be alive is much different, because what we're doing is opening up the creative energies and the creative spirit that wants to come through people. And once they're in that flow of effortless creation, that's where the real joy is at. And they're getting, you know, into the arts, dance, whatever it is that really calls to them, and they start creating from their heart. And that's the best thing anyone can really do in the world at this time, is share, you know, through their heart, whatever it is they like to create. You know, for you guys, like, you're sharing an amazing podcast. This is like a forum, a way for you to share your creative expression with the world. And that touches a lot of people, you know, the vibrations of that. But whether it be art or dance or song or poetry, whatever it is, you know, that's where the medicine's at, you know. And that's what this year is all about, is really stepping into the fullness of ourselves and sharing our gifts, because we have all these gifts, but they're not really much use if we don't share them.
And that gift you were talking about with that sacred geometry incorporated into architecture, is there any places you could find that in our society now? Is that, or in previous societies, is there anything where they've
Yes.
Sacred geometry to cultivate energy and harmony?
So the pyramids would be like the most well-known example of that. But if you look at any of the like cathedrals, like the old cathedrals and buildings like that, they were actually using these kinds of energies and geometry and whatnot. A lot of the circular buildings, like even in like Egypt and stuff, the circular roofs, like those are very powerful energetically. And if you look at most of the buildings here, they're very linear, and like they're just not really optimal in that way. They're efficient for what they are, and it's a way to get a building up that's cost effective. But when it comes to the energy of it, there's definitely some variations that could be fruitful.
Would you say, like, what is the one in Sedona, Cathedral Rock? Is that what it's called?
Cathedral Rock. Yeah, I'm not sure on the. I haven't explored too much the architecture of that, but
that is in Sedona, correct?
Yeah, that's like a mountain that you just call, you know, it's shaped kind of interesting. So I mean, all of that, you know, all form, even like a tree is like very different archetypal expressions. So you have a seed, the point, which is where like the tree grows from, the point, and then the column, which would be like the trunk coming up. So that's taking energy up the channel, this column, and then it branches out into the branches. And so these patterns are everywhere. Like if you look at it like this, you have a tree coming out of the ground and it's receiving the nutrients from the air and the sun, and then the water through the roots and all of that. And then in the same way the tree is doing that in its environment, picture the arteries in our blood, in our body. They're branching out into our body and receiving nutrients, receiving oxygen from the blood cells, all of it. So these archetypal patterns, they exist within us and all around us, and they're constantly manifesting. And so it's like, it's very profound, honestly. One thing I've been meditating a lot on lately is like where the mountains, they meet the sky, and kind of the marriage of where that's happening. And that's like a really powerful energy where the earth meets the heavens, so to speak.
Yeah, since the last time we talked, you were talking about like the auras like things give off and like seeing them, and Corey and I have been out in nature more since we've been home from school. Like we've been doing all our work in outside in the woods and stuff. And I've been really able to see like the the aura that like the plants and the trees give off, like slight, but like I can feel that the energy is there. And I can almost feel it in some people too. Like for example, my brother's roommate has a gun at school, and like he showed me his gun like a week ago, and I could see when he was holding the gun that like he was just like a pure soul, like complete innocence, but he was saying like, oh, like I'm ready to like use this thing to like kill someone, you know what I mean? Like really distorted in like the idea that like he thought that he can like physically take someone's life, and like I could see his aura that like he didn't really mean it like that. Like he wouldn't be ready to like do that, you know what I mean? Like I could tell that his like soul was so pure that like he didn't really mean what he was saying when he said that. And it was like kind of crazy. Like for me it was like very deep at the time. Like obviously I didn't share that with him, but like it hit me pretty hard that like I was able to see that aura coming off him.
When you can read that, it's like that's what you picked up on as you were reading his field, and you kind of could tell when he was speaking authentically to you versus not. And so truth carries a vibration, and like you kind of picked up on the words he was saying weren't necessarily in alignment with how he really feels deep down.
Yeah, it was a kind of crazy experience, not gonna lie.
So
as you continue to explore the qigong, those type of things will open up more and more to you, and as you kind of engage with them, what we put our energy into expands. So what we're focusing on, the stories we're focusing on, that's what like expands in our life. So if we're focusing on the magic and beauty and mystery that nature and life has to offer, we're going to get shown more and more of that. But if we're focusing on all the negativity or whatever else is going on, that will also expand our lives. And it's all our choice. We get to choose where we direct our energy and attention. And obviously things will come up and it could be perceived as negative, but how we respond to that completely dictates what's going to come down the line. So say something perceptibly negative came up and we just kind of laughed it off, and we're like, oh, look at that, it's pretty funny. It just kind of rolls off us, and then we can move into that. We're basically what we're doing, we're transmuting negativity into happiness and joy, or whatever. Now I will put a caveat, like because I've seen this a lot, being in Sedona and like the spiritual bypassing and all of that. It's important that we allow space for what is. So it's like we're not taking something and like pretending it's not real. It's like, okay, like for example, if there's a negative emotion, we want to give it space to be there and witness it. Be like, oh, like there's anger or fear or judgment or shame or whatever it may be, and witnessing it and being like, oh yeah, that's real, I feel this, and then move forward. Because if we just go straight from feeling to moving forward without really giving it the space to be, then it kind of festers in the unconscious. because it didn't really get to play out its expression. So I felt that that was important to note.
Yeah, that is definitely important. Definitely important. Me and Corey were talking about that in one of our recent podcasts. Just like we learned this from you, kind of. You helped us, or at least me, like see it more clear. Like just like using. You talked about everything is just raw energy or just chi, right? And like those negative emotions could come on to us, but like we just have to let them sit or like observe them, and then we could use them to create and use them to make a more positive energy towards something instead of just like sitting with the negative and like reacting to it, just letting everything be chi and like raw and like using that energy to do something positive and like create rather than like being so negative and then having it ruin your day or something.
Well, and then every emotion has its kind of shadow side and more of a gift side. And so you can actually get excited with this process of transmutation. For example, anger, which is oftentimes stored in the liver, kind of the positive aspect, if you will, of that is passion. So it's like you could feel anger and then play out whatever unconscious pattern you learned in childhood. Or you could witness that and see, okay, I'm feeling anger, and be like, oh, wow, like, what does that feel like? Can I feel that more? And then you really get excited and you feel into it. It's like, how much anger can I feel? Like, how much can I feel into this experience? And then, you know, from that place, you can just be like, oh, wait, this is just all raw energy. And then, you know, you can bring that into your life, you know, bring that into your creative practices, your relationships, whatever, from a healthy place, you know, a place of passion, like, wow, like excitement, you know?
I think a lot of artists do
That's
that
profound.
through like their painting and their guitar or singing and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very profound in nature of like just using these different emotions, their energies at the end of the day, to then put that into something creative. And like you were saying, like the tree, like the creative expression of the tree is the branches extending from it. And our creative expression is just, we have this being in this body to create in this physical world, and like using that ability all the time and using those different emotions to create from and have a space. Yes. That's awesome.
And with the trees, like for example, a tree, what does a tree want to do? It just wants to grow. And that's like its whole thing. It wants to grow and be and express its tree-ness. And it does that effortlessly. And so a tree, you know, it grows and it receives the water, it receives the oxygen, receives the sun, and it gives out various things, micronutrients, and its symbiotic relationships and such. And it does that all effortlessly. Now, human beings, because we have the mind, we can get in our own way of this being process and this effortless give and exchange. And so instead of just expressing our humanness, or, you know, my Ericness, your Corey-ness, or whatever, it's like we can get in our own way and stop this process of effortless being. So like in any animal, anything, even like a rock or a couch, like it's all expressing itself to the fullest of its ability. A snowflake, you know, they say every snowflake's a little different. The snowflake is expressing its snowflakeness to the best of its ability. And it's happy to do that. It doesn't judge the process or put labels on it or stories. It's like just happy to be that snowflake to the best of its ability. So each of us, if we just express ourself, our being to the best of our ability, know that that is enough. And that is, you know, all that is meant to be.
Yeah, I saw a quote from Aubrey Marcus. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. Are you?
Yeah.
Aubrey? Yeah, but he said on one of his podcasts that like we come into this world as human beings, but then we lose that beingness over time. And most people lose that beingness as we grow up. And then we really can't sit here and say we're human beings because we're not acting on our beingness. We're just
Right.
up in our mind and just our humanness, that we've lost that sense of being. And like to truly say you're a human being, you have to embrace that beingness. And we can't let our mind like cultivate our reality and distort the true essence of our being.
And the ego just kind of like
Right.
that resistance towards it. Like the ego is always trying to resist the beingness. It's trying to give you an excuse or fight like your true nature, true self, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying to pull
When for the, you know, when you take qigong to a really high level and you're developing that full body awareness and cultivation. You can even bring in aspects of your psyche, like your inner child, your shadow, your higher self, different aspects of your consciousness, and bring them into your body, into the movement. And that's where like the real magic's at, because then you're integrated fully. You're bringing all these different aspects. The way I look at it is kind of like, being a exercise coach, like when I was younger, teaching postural stuff. There's a lot of cues. So it's like tuck the tailbone in, tuck the chin a little bit. It's like all these postural cues. And you help people kind of find where center is. In the same way with our psyche, it's like, okay, what does it feel like to have my inner child fully integrated? What does it feel like to have my shadow fully integrated, my ego fully integrated, all these different aspects of ourselves fully integrated? And you find that kind of centered place where it's like, okay, all these pieces are together working in harmony together through the body, the physical vessel. And the more we attune to that physical posture or that psychic posture, the more natural it becomes, and the more that is our natural resting state to operate from that place of integration.
That's freaking awesome. I'm about to go home and write all that down. That's awesome. Just integrating all fat, because like I could say like everyone's a child at heart, but like we lose that like childlike state over time. Like at least I do. Like sometimes I'll get like just like too caught up in the moment. I'm like, yo, like what would my like younger self wouldn't be like tripping about this at all. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
This sound healer I knew, she shared with me a very interesting thing one time. She was like, feel into what it felt like when you were a child. She's like, what did it feel like in your eyes? And I did that. And it was like, my eyes as a child were so open and relaxed and just like, whoa, like look at this crazy, experience. And from all the conditioning and programming, it's like we've developed all this tension in our face and our being that kind of shuts down that. But that childlike curiosity, like your eyes are just like, whoa, like this is amazing. Like, look at all the mystery and beauty,
Yeah.
It's because you've never seen it before. And like you said, like the socialization just kind of pulls you away from, I like to say, singularity in a way. Like when you're born and you're just pure, and then everything we learn throughout our childhood just kind of brings us away from that pureness. And you're told like, oh, do this and don't do this. This is good. This is bad. It kind of just like those judgments and stuff just pull you away from like what your true nature is.
Well, and I think a big part of that is the conditioning through the education system, and being that, putting all these labels and the science, and it's like all that has its place. But we've really simplified things that aren't that simple. And like the simplicity is useful and beautiful, but at the same time, it's like there's 30 billion like biochemical reactions happening a second in the human body. So things aren't really that simple. And it's like, look at nature, if you just see, oh, that's a tree and that's a rock and that's sand, it's like you put a label on it and that's it. It's a closed thing. But if you look at that and it's like, wow, that's a living organism in an ecosystem. And I can see that tree has a column and it's branching out, and it has leaves, and it's conscious, and like the rocks has like grids going through the structures of the cells. It's like if you really look into what actually is there's so much complexity that we can really get enthralled with, like, wow, like how did all this come together in such a beautiful order? It's not just random the way it's set up. So that's just one way to look at the world.
And you start seeing like the aliveness and like the expressionness and like how the grass expresses itself, like you said, or the trees express themselves. And I think when you start to notice it naturally, because you could definitely notice it through like psychedelic effects and et cetera, breath work and stuff like that, and you start to come to tune with it. But when you can notice it just in like natural consciousness, waking consciousness, I think it's definitely profound.
Well, and a cool meditation you can do is go out into like an environment and really tune into like as many aspects of it as you can. And so feel into like, what is the pressure like? What does the air temperature feel like? Is it like, when I say pressure, is like kind of feel like it's like a high pressure, a low pressure? What's the ground like? Is it soft? Is it hard? What's the energy around me? What's it kind of feel like? You start to feel into the subtlety of what's around you. And if you get really good at this, you can actually tune into the environment you're in and empty yourself and see. Like for me, like when I go out there, certain things like will want to be moved, like a rock. It sounds weird, but it's like a rock will like want to be moved just like a certain way. And sometimes I'll pick it up and move it somewhere, and I'll just know where to put it. And it just feels better. And when I was in Nevada City, my friend and I were exploring this walk, and we had visited one of his friend's house, and he had these like cool crystals in his front yard. And we walked past this tree that had all these big crystals around it. My friend was like, something's a little off about that, isn't it? And I kind of looked at it and I kind of felt into the energy. And I like picked up this like obsidian rock and moved it to the side of the tree. And I like stepped back and kind of felt into it. And I was like, yeah, that feels much more like at ease in my being. And my friend was like, yeah, like it was out of place, you know? And so we can kind of tune into what the nature is calling for. And so, you know, when I was describing the way I intend to create, you know, architecturally is like identifying what energies are being called for in that location, whether it's a rock vortex or a structure, or like how does the land want to be worked with in a way that creates more harmony and beauty.
That's awesome.
So when you're talking about that, just kind of like lit a light in my brain when you were talking about feeling the subtleness. And like, I think that brings you into the present moment is a big part of it. And a lot of people get caught up in thinking about like right now. And like the only thing going through their head is now. And they're not thinking about what's going on in the now. And they're just kind of trying to escape their thoughts without anything to escape it too. And they're forgetting like you said, like the pressure and the air temperature and the wind on your face and just noticing it all.
Yeah, I've been noticing it since you said it. Now I can't stop thinking about it.
How does that feel? And then like you can like, yeah, as you tune into this, like I'm highly sensitive to these kind of things. So I can walk into a room, I'll be like, whoa, like there's some really heavy energy going on in here. Or, you know, it'll feel good. And it's like, you know, you really become to what the environment is telling you through the energy and information.
That like sort of like
No, it's a group chat.
no, that sort of like intuition comes with like they're like one of the first things you said about the retreat was like getting people's psyche right and they're like their gut mind right, and like that intuition comes along with having like a clear gut and like eating those superfoods and like being like in touch with like inside that intuition. That's where that all that stuff comes from.
Well, and the postural alignment. So I can show you an exercise if you want, like just like lift your arms like normally and then just drop them. And then now try lifting them with your mind. It's much different, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's with like the Qigong is like you're lifting or moving your body with the consciousness versus with the muscles. So you're moving the energy through you or allowing the energy to move through you versus directing the muscles to, you know, play out various mechanical actions.
That's making a lot of sense in my head.
Yeah.
You're lighting light bulbs up here right now.
And
That's fire.
you know, when I was doing the chi with this guy, because he's been helping me open up all kinds of joints and stuff in my body to get the flow restored, because I got trained like not really optimally for many years, and doing various movements. I remember I did this kind of dynamic tension thing I was describing with the Bruce Lee stuff, and there's like a lot of like action in the muscles. And then when I finally like went to release and lower down with like so much ease and presence, and how relaxed can I move, I felt all this chi flowing through my arm, and then it hit like my wrist, and it kind of like it felt like it was kind of doing a little dance there, and then it kind of moved through. So it hit a place of blockage, and then it kind of moved its way through. And so that's the thing with the joints, is like the chi will be flowing naturally through, but anywhere there's tension, it slows down the flow. And so that's where the spine is really important, having the tailbone slightly tucked and like the sternum in optimal position, the neck in the optimal position, because the spine is like this column of energy. And so when you're doing the movements, that's a big part of it. And having the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And so when the tailbone is slightly tucked under, there's like a microcosmic orbit with the tongue as well. So the energy is like when you breathe in, it's coming up and up your spine on the back and up into your head. And on the exhale, it's coming down the front of the body, and it's a spiral. And so it's a charge, like a battery, positive and negative. And so like when people talk about tantra, like that's a big aspect of it, is the microcosmic orbit and this kind of battery mechanism that plays out in our energetic being, the positive and negative polarities.
I experienced that with are you familiar with the CIA gateway tapes?
I don't think so.
It's like a declassified CIA, like a couple docs from the Monroe Institute, and it's like it's called the gateway tapes, but it's like a set of meditations, and like in that meditation it's like it's a guided like set of them. And like one of the things it talks about is, yeah, like really channeling that energy like up through your spine, and then through like the back of your head, and then like out through the front, and like creating that like what does he call it, his resonant energy bubble. That's
Yeah.
creating that like cosmic flow, that orbit, and creating like a bubble around you. And then like he talks about from that, like building like the Merkaba light vessel around you, and like getting like in like your resonant energy bubble, and like really like feeling like you're enclosed in your like raw energy that you're projecting out, like the aura that you're projecting.
Yes, that's powerful visualizations. The it just kind of arose a funny insight, or just observation that's like, yes, for many people that sounds very woo woo and stuff, but these government agencies are have been experimenting with these things for a long time, and it's not news to them. And there's a reason these things aren't mainstream, because you can really activate some parts of yourself that make you very independent and embodied and clear on what you like and what you don't like, and what you'll stand for, and what you'll just let be done to you.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with like almost like MK Ultra and like psychedelic research. This was all at the time that the government was studying with like MK Ultra, and like using LSD to like experience these higher realms of consciousness. And then there you could even go ahead and say, you ever heard of the movie the Men Who Stare at Goats?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the idea that like in the military they were training these soldiers to be like spiritual soldiers in a sense, and that they could just like look at a cloud and disperse the cloud just using their mind, or that they could stare at a goat and it would just drop dead or something, or like pass through objects and stuff like that by like resonating with the frequency of other things.
Yes, yes. Very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the something that's very fascinating to me is like group intention, especially when done from people that are operating from an integral level of being, based on like Ken Wilber's system. An integral being is somewhat of what I was describing, of having all the different facets of yourself being integrated, mind, body, and spirit, but on many levels. And when, we're integrated, we're physically aligned, emotionally aligned, mentally aligned, and spiritually aligned. Our intention is very powerful, especially when we're channeling it from the heart, from the source of creative energy moving through us, from that place of emptiness, stillness. Um, but yeah, when groups come together, I've heard of some really magical things happening. So that's something I definitely intend to explore down the line, is to see what kind of miracles we can bring forth with group intention in that same way you were describing.
Yeah, you're doing that. That's awesome, because you guys are like making that a reality at your retreat and stuff. And are you familiar with the CE5 files, or like
No.
Dr. Greer?
Mm-mm.
Dr. Stephen Greer, he's like a conscious guy, UFO researcher type guy like that. But he had this experience when he was a young teen. He had like a near death experience. And he says that when he was having this near death experiences, his consciousness was essentially taken through a trip through the universe by like other
Mm-hmm.
entities and stuff. And then after that, he got into like meditation and stuff. And then he says one time he was trying to make contact, and a light being came to him that he could see, and it tapped him on the body. And again, he was taken through a trip through the universe with this like entity. And with that, he's older now, and he's worked like with like the government and stuff like that. But he created these CE5 meditations where like with group intention and like everyone operating out of the heart chakra, that you could make these contacts with like higher dimensional beings. And there's been a couple times where if they've been doing these group like meditations with like love, pure intention, that they've seen like UFOs or light beings appear, and like just like really crazy profound stuff just from the when everyone is aligned in the same like purpose with the same intention. Crazy stuff starts to happen.
Well, and you know, my curiosity lies with how can we take these kind of things to start to bend the rules, if you will, of the playing field as it is. And that starts with the belief in the place of curiosity that that's even possible to begin with. Like, I wonder what would happen if we all set forth to make things a little less or a little bit more malleable than they may seem. Because I believe, it all being energy, that certain rules we've set, even through physics, can potentially be explored further.
I definitely agree with that, because we live in a conscious universe and we're just consciousness at the end of the day, just interacting with ourselves. So why wouldn't you be able to interface and interact with other forms of this consciousness and this energy that resides everywhere?
Yes.
Oh, this is all just so much going through my mind right now. I really like the grounding aspect is something I've been doing recently, and kind of feeling like the energy of the earth. And is there anything that you do to just like tap into other people's energy fields or the earth's energy field? Like you said, like the subtleness of the moment, but is there anything that you notice specifically about people or things that stick out to you so that you can tap into these subtle energies?
Yes. So for me, that's generally a pretty effortless process where certain things will be shown to me. Like sometimes I'll see aspects of people's higher self, but I take a very much take what is offered philosophy with it. So I don't really set out to do that unless someone specifically asks me to. I've spent the past like 3 to 4 years developing strong boundaries, being like an empath, if you will. I could feel those kind of naturally and identified with them, which is a very common problem for many people. And so, yes, I've kind of developed boundaries to the point where I'm not always feeling these energies. That way I can stay in my own center. But with intention, yes, I will tune into other people's energies. Sometimes I do it if I feel called to help somebody and they're really opening up to me about something, but their mind is kind of hiding the true essence of what they're saying. So they're just kind of blabbing along about something. And I kind of like, in a way, I stop listening, but actually I'm listening deeper. And I'm like, okay, what is really being said? And I kind of feel into the experience, like, what is really being conveyed to me right now? And usually I'll get like a insight into the core of what they're trying to convey, but the mind is like delivering it in a somewhat protective way, if that makes sense.
Oh,
You're
that
getting the
makes
message
sense.
from the shadow.
Yes.
So like when that happens, like when you're like having these experiences with these people, do you just like sit back and observe it and like not say anything about it, or do you like try to get these people to like really let out that like what they're like hiding in the shadow, or do you not?
Oftentimes I'm just witnessing. Uh, I try not to. I'm learning, but I try not to give too much unsolicited advice. It generally doesn't go super well. And so generally I'm just witnessing things. And then if like I see a lot about a lot of people and I witness a lot. But I just kind of like, allow that to be what it is unless they ask me to, share about it.
I feel that because when Corey and I like started this journey, we just wanted to share it with like everyone, right? And there's a lot of people in my life that aren't necessarily ready to like take in this information, and then they'll either get mad or they'll look at you crazy. Like, and I've had to learn to just like only share when people are asking for it, or like when I could tell they're ready for it.
Have you heard this story of Ram Dass when he met like his guru?
That's one of my favorite ones. With the when he meets Maharaji.
Yes, yes.
No, that's
So
Let the fans tell the story.
tell the story. Let's hear the story.
well, so yeah, Ram Dass like went to India on this is like the short version. He went to India on a trip, and he's like they're walking through the mountains or whatever, and eventually they come up on this group of people, and they're all in robes and stuff. And Ram Dass is like, oh, like this is a cult, like screw this, I don't want anything to do with this. And this man like calls him out, and he's like, you were thinking about your mother last night. And Ram Dass kind of was like, what? Like, and apparently he hadn't thought about his mother in years, but the previous night he was thinking about her, but he didn't tell anybody. And so in that moment, he was like, this man can read my mind, and he's privy to everything about me. He's witnessing me fully, and yet he was holding him in this unconditional love. And that really shifted him because it opened him up to be seen on such a level and to be accepted. And so I was reading this book by a Sufi mystic. And so on the note of like, helping people, the best way we can help them is just to witness them from a place of love and to have space for everything that they're expressing. And so in the Sufi book, they're describing the same kind of thing. Like when a master looks upon you, like a look of someone from that place of full witnessing and no judgment, no attachment, no story. They're just like receiving your fullness, and they love it. They love you, and that shifts people. And so the more we can come into that state of total acceptance, and that stems from self-love. I had an experience where this actually played out. I was on the beach with a friend of mine in LA, and we were doing like our qigong and like whatever. And, LA is a pretty busy beach. It was Santa Monica, and yeah, we were doing our qigong, and then I started doing some toning, and I started doing kind of like shamanic chanting, and I was really just like, being present, just like enjoying myself, and I was having a lot of fun. And I remember like people were walking by, and they thought my friends had joined me at that point, so we're both doing this like shamanic thing on the beach, and then I remember this like woman and her partner, they walked by, and I had my eyes closed. I was kind of like in the zone. And I remember this like woman and her partner walked by, and I saw her like whisper something to her partner. I could feel the energy, and like she was like projecting a judgment onto us. And I remember I was sitting there, and I was in so much like self-love in that moment. I was sitting there, and I remember opening my eyes, and I looked up at her, and I made eye contact, and I just held that energy. And she felt that. And what she felt was she projected a judgment onto somebody, and it was met with unconditional love. And I felt it shift her, because she was like, wait, like I just got witness for like my entire being, my shadow, and it was loved and accepted because it is all God. And it's like, and so that's the real medicine, is when we embody from that place of self-love and we witness others from that place. And it's like we fully receive them for who they are on all levels.
That's
And
awesome.
nothing needs to be said. Is like that was like a really long tangent on the point of like nothing really does need to be said.
Awesome. You're perfect, bro.
It's energy.
Hi.
Got little boys.
My neighbors are saying hello. So
that's some pure energy right there.
Yeah, it is. So you transmitted a message just with your gaze, in a sense, of thousands of words without even saying anything, which is like, that's something that can only happen through like a couple interactions, like that one that you said. Like that must have been just feeling like what that woman felt. Like I could feel like as if I was in that situation, and somebody, essentially you forgave her, and she like saw forgiveness in your eyes, in a sense of like,
Yes.
yeah.
there was like no animosity, you know, it was just pure like, yes, I see you, I know, you know, I know, but it's okay. You know, we're all love.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh, I love it. Dude, these gnats out here.
Yeah,
Crazy. We're
there's a
getting
bunch of
eaten
gnats
alive in
out
this
here, man.
backyard.
Yeah.
New Jersey, man.
Yeah, New Jersey, the bugs. We had ticks on us all day. We were out in the woods just talking, making some TikToks and stuff, making some videos, and we just had ticks crawling up the legs.
Yes, the leeches.
Oh yeah.
What message do the animal spirits have to tell you?
Uh-huh. So what type of nature do you have out there where you are right now in California? Are there a bunch of mountains and stuff like that? Have you been exploring around and experiencing all that?
Yeah, I could show you guys.
Let's go outside.
Let's go on a tour.
So,
Oh, it's hot out here.
so what time is it there? Like what?
It's almost 5 probably. So we have a
Fun, dude.
desert, and there's mountains.
Wow.
Such there's mountains, lots of mountains.
What a property. That's awesome.
amazing.
And yeah, this property is like quite big. This fence is just in the kind of area where the house is. I'll show you the vortex kind of we built out here, a little rock vortex.
I saw that on your Instagram
Oh,
story
yeah, we
yesterday.
did
I
see
showed
that.
it to John. Or was that on your Instagram story? One of them was.
Yeah, and then we have the peace frog. We're still building his home, but it's coming together here. So we have the little peace frog here.
Oh, I think that's what I saw. Yeah, that's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is that what you've been working on? That kind of those shapes and architecture and stuff like that? Have you been working on actual buildings and stuff too?
That's the more fun stuff, so to speak. We can have fun whole process. Like, you know, the guy I've been staying with, I very much feel like I'm in the Karate Kid, honestly, because we're out doing our qigong and stuff. And we're out painting stuff and doing like whatever kind of construction work needs to be done. And the guy I'm staying with feel like he'd be like, yeah, like you gotta have good chi, Eric. He's like reminding me, it's like, you know, even through the painting, it's like bringing that focus, that meditation into, you know, everything we're doing. So he kind of gives me subtle reminders when I, you know, get in my head or whatever it may be.
Putting the love into the creation, because at the end of the day, that's all you're doing, just creating through all that stuff.
Then so we have this this Joshua tree here. These are very cool trees.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And we built this little pyramid around it, and I don't know if you can see over there, but there's another stone. So the pyramid is like directing energy, and then it's going to pick up over there. So the intention is to kind of direct it around the land. And just last night, I was out here meditating, and there's a spot over there. I kind of drew in the sand a foundation where I'm going to build like a kind of a wind over here. And that happens to be on the west side of the property. So I'm going to go around and probably build a fire tribute as well, and go through the elements and kind of build out in that way. So that's kind of the fun, creative projects.
To leave the property to like activate your energy and do everything that you got to do, huh?
Right, and then the real meditation, you know, the inspiration I've had is to really carry that level of love and presence as I'm doing these various tasks, moving wheelbarrows and doing all this kind of work anywhere I go on the property, because being that we're setting it up for retreats, you know, by making those energetic grooves of intention and presence, that's energy that will be felt by the people who come here. So say I put in a month or a year of conscious work on the land, like that's going to be felt by anyone who walks this same area.
Definitely.
No, that's
so we're instilling our energy into whatever creation we have, and the form of creation that speaks to me just so happens to be in this way. But whether it's art or music or whatever, putting that energy into it because it's going to be felt.
It's the same principle of like cooking food with love. I'm sure you've heard that before, of where
Absolutely
prepared with love, like you feel that positive energy coming off of it. And if you're preparing your retreat in the land like that, people are going to feel that when they go there too. Oh, and the little Buddha. Oh my
awesome.
God.
Oh, I forgot. I didn't show you guys. The fountain's off right now, but we have a little cool guy out here too. We have this big Buddha head. This thing's like 300 pounds, which is good because it's it gets kind of windy here, so it'll keep them in place. But yeah, we're getting the place, getting it together, but there's still a lot of work to be done. As you can see, this hasn't even been like unboxed yet. Wow. Couch here. Things are coming together, you know, one day at a time.
Incredible so far.
Good for you, bro. That's awesome.
Yeah, like a few weeks ago, there wasn't even running water in here, so that's kind of the state of being we've been in.
Anybody living on that property yet, or are you?
I'm holding down the fort for the time being.
I got you. That's
yeah.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Just being in your element, I guess, right? Like when you're out there, you probably just feel amazing when you wake up, excited to be alive every day.
Oh, the desert, the stillness. It's like, what creation can we bring forth today, you know?
Oh.
Awesome, bro. Oh. We just gotta be that creation. That's so awesome. We gotta get out there one time.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys out here.
I would love to.
We gotta come to a retreat.
You could, I could help you guys kind of down the line, maybe set up a retreat for some of your friends and people local to you guys or whoever, you know, your audience. Meet you guys in person and get out in the land, and we could set up a little, you know, modules for them and, you know, teach them some Qigong, get them some good food in their system and what have you. And you know, whatever else you would want to explore with them.
That could definitely be something.
That's
down the
definitely
line.
The goal.
Yeah,
definitely
trying to build a conscious community up. And
anything you can dream or perceive, you can achieve.
Yes, exactly.
We were just talking about that today because, like, our goal with this is essentially that same thing. We're on the car ride over here talking about. We want to create like 5D wellness centers and like just like a place where like people have access to like all this stuff. And like just creating a conscious community. And like we were saying, like people may think it's crazy, but like the only people stopping us from it happening is ourselves. Like the only people stopping us from building our brand and building our community is ourselves. Like if we just put in the work, like one day it'll come along and it'll come into existence.
I love to say it's in motion.
It's in motion.
You put it in motion, it stays in motion with the intent behind it, and it will come to you.
Yes, you are on your way.
I love it. What is that little medallion you have on your necklace right there?
This is a biogeometry.
Oh, yeah, I got to get close. I want to see it. Oh, wow. I was checking it out when you hopped on the call. I couldn't tell what it was.
All the symbols are associated with the organ systems.
Okay.
Like we were describing with the trees and everything, every form creates an energy, like that pyramid by the Joshua tree, that's taking energy and directing it into a single point. So the patterns on this medallion happen to harmonize organ systems based on that same philosophy of taking form and creating a resonance.
I'll show you my medallion. I got this piece for Christmas.
Oh, beautiful.
Can you tell what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. I got it custom made for myself.
My friend had one of those. It was like a golden mirror that was like an octagon, and then on it was that design. And I have this cube, this harmonizing cube actually from the same company. And my friend put the cube on this mirror, and the energy in the room just like shifted, and it was like it created this vortex. We put a cup of water on it and dropped in some colloidal silver, and you could see the colloidal silver started to like create this crazy vortex in the water.
It's like alchemy almost. Like that's literally alchemy. And
well, you know, the water and the silver, you know, it's like I can feel the energy, but there's something like an outsider that might, you know, they might not even, you know, believe in that. But with the water and stuff, like you can see with your eyes, like, you know, something's happening there.
Yeah. Wow,
that's awesome. We gotta try a science project with
we gotta try
flower of life.
Yeah. No, And are you into the I'm sure you are into like the rock towers. I've been
Oh
whenever I'm at
yes.
the beach and the jetties, I love just seeing how high I can build it up and keep it like perfect. At the one jetty, I had like 25 of them on the one jetty, and then the winter, they all fell over. But
Yes, that's a beautiful form of art and movement. You
it's
get kinds of stimulation in ways you might not usually have.
it's a meditation in a sense of like finding the perfect rock, like which one is going to balance the best, and like so
Yes.
picking it out. And it's just like the presence in the moment, experiencing that movement is definitely special too.
One it's a similar thing. I would use this when I would go to libraries and I would like empty myself and be drawn to certain books and stuff. But you can do the same with the rocks, and you can kind of empty yourself and be like, okay, like which rock is next, and then whichever like your eyes fixate on generally is the right one. And I've tested this. I do the same practice when I paint mandalas, and I'll kind of do that emptying practice, and I'll grab one of the colors, and then sometimes I'll kind of second guess it and be like, I don't know about this color. I'll put it back, and then I do it again. It's like usually always the first color I picked up. So
Awesome.
there's there's like that self-doubt or judgment, if you will, coming up to be like, like the mind's kind of playing a game, but the higher self already knows the answer.
That goes back to the gut. Like,
Right.
gut instinct's always the one to go with right there.
But yeah, I would say the heart instinct.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Just the intuition, developing that, just so rather than a thinking, but a knowing all the time. And that's something.
Because the gut is very useful, but the gut is more of a primal animalistic instinct. And that can be useful, but it's like sometimes not.
Definitely.
Because it's operating from that animal level of like, okay, it's like a survival thing, mechanism.
That makes sense.
No, that does make sense. Just
Whereas the heart always knows the way.
Yeah, heart always knows.
When you create with love, that's how the best creations come to be. Wow.
Yeah.
It's been very insightful.
This has been a very good podcast.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. What time is it now?
It's I don't know.
All right.
8:05. Eric, you good to wrap this up, brother?
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
This was amazing. This was my favorite one yet, I think.
Yeah.
For consciousness rising. So every time we're gonna be
we're going
to the moon.
The grand rising is upon us.
Yes, grand rising.
Awesome.
All right, thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank
Always
you so much.
Always a blessing having you on. And if
I could just a shameless plug. We're gonna be launching our first the retreat August 24th. So if anyone is interested in like exploring what that would look like, just DM me on Instagram at Eric ERIC _Delozier DELOZIER. And then also if you have any questions about any of the other stuff I've been involved with, I'm more than happy to get back to you and hook it up. So
of course, yeah. We'll have you back on anytime you want.
Anytime. Literally anytime. We'll have it.
We'll edit that in for you. That little plug. We'll make sure the people know about what you got going on.
Yeah, and check in the description below. We'll have all Eric's info for you to get into contact with him. And check out our socials and the 5D merch. We've got the merch now. Yeah. We got the 5D Jedi Warrior logo. So check that out on Spreadshop. And as always, Eric, it's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I'm
good, brother.
You guys sharing this with the world. It's truly.
Yeah, and Eric, before you go, are you okay with us splicing this up and posting some of your clips to our TikTok, and we'll send them over to you? So.
Oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we'll get you. We're gonna put them up. We'll put the words, the transcript, and everything on them. We'll send them over to you. Put them on Reels. Put them on the Instagram story. Whatever you want to do. We're just gonna splice a bunch of stuff up. Get the message out.
All about content, man. We got to get the message out to the people.
Awesome. All right, Eric. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, boys. Yes.
Peace out.